Hello everyone and welcome back to Game Brigade. My name is Brian and today we'll be doing a preview for the new TCG coming to Kickstarter, Arc Legends. Arc Legends is a 1 vs 1 dueling trading card game, and I've never done a trading card game review before for Game Brigade, so I thought it would be kind of interesting to take a look at this one, and specifically because Arc Legends had a mechanic that I thought was relatively interesting and something I hadn't seen before, and so I was curious to try it out and see what I thought. So in this game, players are going to be dueling over a battlefield, and you can see I've got the battlefield here set up, and this is a randomized battlefield where players are going to be playing these cards face down, and then we'll be revealing them at the start of the game. So it's going to be a different battlefield every time, and each of these locations have a different effect that will affect your champions as they move along the battlefield. And your champions are able to move any direction they want during the support phase. They all get one movement, so you can kind of move them around and position themselves so they can attack. And in the top corner shows the range of those characters so they can use their different types of attacks or abilities. So what made me interested in Arc Legends and why did I want to check this out? Well, I thought this would be an interesting kind of dynamic, having this battlefield. Kind of reminded me of chess, where your positioning on the field can matter. Each character has a special ability that they can activate, so playing them properly is going to matter. Positioning will matter, especially because you want to keep them alive, I assume as long as you can, as you try to whittle your opponent's morale down from 10 to 0. So that is effectively the game. So players are going to be having a deck of cards they'll be drawing from at the start of each turn. You can choose to either draw from your champion deck or from your standard deck. And your standard deck of cards will have different types of abilities. They can have equipment that can attach to your characters. They can have tactic cards that can respond to an effect or cancel a spell if your opponent plays one. And they all use what they call wisdom to cast these spells. At the top corner of every character, there's a number that indicates their wisdom count, and that will set your initial wisdom. And as you play more characters, your wisdom will increase. And of course, some of these characters will have to be retired at that point. But it does allow you to continually play more cards. And some of these guys also have different abilities, which will require sometimes zeal, which means you have to actually force an attack with your character against an opponent's champion. So it does kind of force the interaction between the players. So what do I like? What do I not like? And would I recommend this game for you? Let's talk about it. First off, what I liked was the dynamic movement between the characters. The board is interesting in the sense that you can move around, and lava damages you. The mountains are impassable. The water reduces your defense. Planes don't have any effect. So it was interesting to try to figure out what's the best way to maneuver around this. And it did implement that feeling that I was looking for when I originally saw this game. So that's really nice. With that, though, I didn't necessarily like how it's randomly placed out, because it removes some of the tactical feel that I feel like could be inherent if players are given the ability to decide how they want to play it out. But the only reason I think they do that is you don't want to level up the entire thing so that it's impassable terrain. So maybe that was their decision. But I do think there is a loss of strategy when players aren't given full agency in terms of how they want to play out their lands, because just like in chess, there's different type of openings. So you've got the London or whatever. So players want to open up with a certain type of opening, and maybe I want to counter that with a different type of opening for myself as the second player. I also questioned how much the first player gets value, because they also get to place the final tile and they get to go first in terms of damaging their opponents. So there's always been a very hard decision in how do you balance going first and second, and the inherent abilities that first players generally get. And I thought it was interesting that the first player also gets to place the final tile, which is a bit random, again, because you don't know what it's going to be, because it's all randomly placed as it is. But still, I don't know. I thought it was interesting. The card play reminded me very much of Magic the Gathering. There are 3 phases. Basically, you've got a support phase, which you're able to play cards from your hands, basically build out the battlefield, equip creatures to your cards. If you don't, not equip creatures, equip equipment to your cards. If you are down a hero, you can play another hero from your hand, or you can go to the combat phase, which you can then do some movement and initiate combat against another character. And once all combat is completed, you go to a second support phase where I can then choose to play more cards from my hand, and then I could just decide to equip these spells and cards to other creatures. So I appreciated that aspect of the tactical play, being able to play things in different phases. It seemed to work well overall. I enjoyed it. In terms of what I didn't like, there wasn't much about that. It felt very natural. It's hard for me to know exactly how deep the gameplay goes in this regard because I only had a pre-con built deck with very specific, and both decks that we had available were the same, so there wasn't any variety. I didn't have any different factions to play around with, so it was hard for me to know exactly how deep the mechanics go in that regard. But for the most part, they were basically pretty average, pretty standard cards. Increase this character's strength attack, or reduce the amount of damage, increase defense, things like that. They were pretty basic as of right now. I'm very curious as to what would be available within the actual full realm of the game. Nitpicks and things that I would look at for after playing this game. One of the things that was probably the thing that led me to wanting to play this game, the first part was one of the most frustrating things when it was all said and done, was the actual battlefield here. We have all of our lands set up, and we actually play our characters on these lands. But what ends up happening is, you can kind of see as I'm doing this, the lands and everything kind of gets all snocked around and messed around. Especially when you're trying to equip multiple things to people, you have to constantly make sure you've got everything organized properly. It can get messy, and so for a player like me who I have a term called messy magic. When I used to play Magic the Gathering, I hated when things didn't look nice, and I always wanted to make sure everything was aligned. It can get aggravating, so that was probably something that I should have maybe noticed, but I didn't notice until I started playing it, and it was definitely detracting from the enjoyment of the game, because I did enjoy the actual battlefield aspect in terms of the gameplay. So take that as you might, as you will. Will these lands shifting around and getting messy just by playing, and you're constantly having to adjust everything? Will that annoy you, or can you get past it? For me, I was able to get past it to a point, and it's you're like okay, this is just getting ridiculous. So that is my nitpick for the game overall. Arc Legends is a decent card battler that I would love to see more in terms of what is actually going to be implemented in terms of the actual deck and cards available. Without knowing the full suite of different types of cards, different types of legends that you can equip with, it's hard for me to give an evaluation. So I'm just going to leave this again as a preview with limited kind of opinion. And I can't really give a full rating for this one, because I didn't get a full taste of the experience. But this is Arc Legends as a quick rundown of the system and my quick experiences playing this game. Hopefully it helped you if you're making a decision back in this game or not. Let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and talk to you guys very soon. This is Brian from Game Brigade. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.